Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today's gonna be a bit different, as you can tell. It's a talkover one, so we're gonna go through a little bit of a process and how that works. If you've been here for a while, you know I always start out with a sketch because I like having the base work of what we're gonna be working with. I don't usually just jump in with color, so I just go in. And each piece is going to be a bit different. I might start with the background sketching, the foreground sketching. It just depends on what I wanted to showcase in the piece. So this one, if you saw in the beginning, we're going to have a big tree looking out into a nice field of flowers. Sorry. And some rocks. So I'm just going to be sketching this out real quick. And one thing to keep in mind when, at least when I'm sketching, is a lot of this is going to be very loose, very almost vague, um, from my perspective to know what I'm planning to go where. If I were to be sending this off to someone else for approval, or I wanted to add a bit more detail, I usually do. But for my purposes and for how I work, just indicating little indications that I'm going to put grass here. This is going to be a tree with leaves versus a tree with no leaves. This front tree, I'm not going to put any leaf indication just because I want to explore that more in the painting. And when I'm doing the clouds, it's just going to be a quick indication of where the clouds are. And that's going to be another one when I'm starting to paint. It's going to be built out a bit more. So I just want more of the basic shapes defined, and detail work comes in later when I am painting. So now that we got our sketch done, we're going to start working on the sky. I always like working background to foreground. It helps keep everything nice and consistent. So for the sky, we're going for a nice rich blue. Then we're going to come in with a soft brush and with a lighter blue, create a bit of an atmosphere already in the sky. And it's going to be more of a gradient. I prefer using a soft brush rather than the gradient tool because I curve it, giving it more of a natural feel to it instead of just a straight up and down line. And we're going to move on to our clouds. Now, I like making big fluffy clouds, so I go in with the cloud block-in brush, and I'm just going to take a mid-tone white, bluish white, and just going to start making these clouds. They're going to be natural, organic, so they're not going to be very uniform as I'm going in. And then we're going to start blocking in the different colors. You're going to notice for the rest of this, I'm going to tell you, I'm just blocking in, then we're going to go back and adding textures and lighting. That's just my natural flow. Set up a base color, add the colors in, block in light shadows, and then go in with blending and texture later. That's pretty much the whole premise of how I approach painting, but a little step by step for each section we will be going through. And for these clouds, when you're shading clouds, think of them as little circles or spheres, so they're not going to be uniformly lit. It's not going to be light on one side, dark on the other, as if it were a solid object. It's multiple things on top of each other. So there's going to be pockets of light, pockets of dark. So I'm going in, adding in those pockets. And as we add the texture, we're going to be blending it out, adding wisp, giving it movement with the different brushes. And the whites I use, I'm going to use a blue light, and then I'm going to add in a orange yellow light. The orange yellow makes that pop a bit more, and as if the sun is hitting it and making it nice and better. And we're going to go in finally with the last brush and, excuse me, add the sky color and try to break it up to make it more organic and not uniformed. So next we're going to do the mountains, and I'm going to use the lasso tool quickly like the sketch, and I'm going to kind of choose a bit more of a bluish tone that's going to be a bit darker to kind of show it far back in the atmosphere. If I want to change it, I'll have it on the separate layer so I can go back and fix it. And then using the soft round, picking the sky color to kind of push it back into the atmosphere. And I turn off and on the sketch a lot when I'm painting, just to make sure everything's looking good and cohesive. And I didn't actually miss something while I was painting. And these aren't going to have a lot of detail because they are so far back. So just adding a little bit of light to them to kind of give them a little bit of shape, but not too much. And you do have to be careful because you don't want to make things too muddy and too busy in the background to take away. But you also want it to be cohesive and in place. And there's not going to be anything special about these back trees. They're just going to be the leaf block and brush just going in to show the top of a forest. And I turned off the color dynamics here, so it's just going to be a flat color, and I go in with the soft brush and add the atmosphere and lighting to it like I did the mountains. And for those who don't know, color dynamics alternates the two colors in the pick that you have, and based on your brush sensitivity, your pen brush sensitivity. So it'll go through the range. We'll use it later when we're doing the leaves, but for right now I just want it to be a flat color, so I turn it off. And these are going to be a bit more on the bluish green side. Again, they're going to be far back, not many detail. Excuse me. So they take a lot on the atmosphere of the sky, and since our sky is blue, it's going to have a bit more of a bluer tone. So you'll see I didn't like the way the mountain color was, so just tweaking a bit and making it look a bit nicer and in what I was imagining. So a thought that crossed my mind was, what if these were grass hills instead of mountains? So that's why I turned into a bit more of a greener tone, but we'll end up fixing it back to a different color. So back to the trees, just adding a bit more directional lighting to give them a bit more, somewhat of a lighting, somewhat of a shape to them, but not too much. Just using that soft brush, going in and adding quick detail, and then adding a bit more atmospheric to them. So now we are going to start on the back hill. And just using the lasso tool, coming in here, quick selecting the area. I love using the lasso tool to grab large chunks so I can just quickly fill it and then come in and transparency lock it and paint details on top. Transparency lock just allows me to not have to worry if I accidentally go outside of the boundary. It stays in whatever the layer, whatever object's on the layer. And because this back hill is a bit closer to us, we aren't going to have too much blues on this grass hill, but I didn't want to stick to a lot of the bright greens. I wanted to keep a bit more muted greens back here and come in and just start blocking in the colors. You'll notice I do a lot of blocking before I add any texture or additional shading to it. I like making sure the colors I have laid down are what I want before I add too much detail work to them. That way I'm not too worried about having to go back and correct myself back and forth, just to save myself a little bit of time. But to give this ground a bit more a sense of depth to it, using a bit more muted greens in the far back where we have that tree line really helps sell that sense of depth. And as we get close to this front tree on the left side, using a bit more brighter tones to help push what I want forward and the other ones to go backwards. And I always add a little bit of the cast shadows to what I'm working on. It helps me control it not being too muddy. If I use too many multiply layers, too many overlay layers, it quickly becomes not looking nice in simpler terms. So using this in the shading already, when I'm breaking it out, helps me out. I will probably put like one cast shadow multiplier with a texture on it, like a leaf texture, to show the leaves casting their shadow onto the ground. But that will probably be about it. The only other time I would probably use multiplayer if I want to bring anything closer to the viewer, so the front hill will probably have a bit more shadow to it and a bit more darker to help push it closer to us. And I'm using, I'm trying to think of the word, sorry, a bit more when I'm blending it together, having a bit more pockets of dark and light on top of each other instead of having it as a gradient. This will give it a bit more variety and give it a little bit more interesting. So we're going to have a bit of a path walkway. So I'm going to come in with the inking brush, and we're going to have a bit of a tan brown, and just going to come in. It's not going to be super thick because again it's far away, so we just want to show it going off into the distance, and we're just going to have it coming towards us, and a little bit of indication to connect it to the foreground path as well. And then we're going to do the same thing we did with the grass. It's just transparency lock it, come in, block in all the shadow, the lighting, and then blend it for a bit of texture. And we're good to go. A lot of this, as you notice, is just me going in, putting down the base color, tweaking it, changing it if I don't like the initial color, and then going in, adding the shadow, the light, blending them. Pretty much same as same. So what I'm doing here is erasing a bit of the edge, so it looks like the path will curve onto the other edge and drop off. It doesn't just cut out. It makes it look a bit more part of the world instead of just attached to what the ground is looking like. So we're going to be working on trees in the background here. And we're just going to take the same brush we used for the path, add base brown like we've been doing, base color, going in, adding shadow, light, and all the fun stuff. Here we're also going to add a little bit of the sky blue to help curve the tree and make it more part of the world it is in. And some branches, because trees have branches. But a lot of the lighting here is going to be more towards the bottom of the tree. So you'll see more light towards the bottom. And I'm using where I have the tree leaves quickly sketched in as an indicator for me to know how far down I'm going to put the lighting. So something I do is I like to draw the indications of the bark. So just taking a little darker color from the base tree I have and using the same inking brush that we've been using and just kind of loosely indicating where this tree bark might be. This is a stylistic choice of mine. It's not something a lot of other people do when they're doing trees, but this is something I like doing that helps create a bit of fun. But we'll we'll erase a bit of the edges of the tree where that line hits to kind of give it a bit of organic feel. It's not a straight line, it has a bit of bumps and curves to it. So now we're going to start doing the leaves. Now, leaves, I'm just going to do the blocking in like usual. And the when shading a tree leaf like the big, it's going to be similar to the clouds where you have pockets of light, pockets of dark. It's not going to be a smooth gradient across. So I always start with a bit of a darker color at the base and then work my way up, doing a bit of medium light. And I'm not worried about blending because when we go into add texture, that will be the blending there. And like the clouds, try to make it as organic as possible. Make it a abnormal shape. It's not going to be a perfect circle or sphere. It's going to be a more freeformed. So now we're going to add a bit of the leaf texture. And I'm playing around with different types of the leaf brushes to see which one I like the best. But after I decide which one is, then we'll go ahead and blend it. And I'll be turning the color dynamic on off to kind of blend it and flip between the two. And like the clouds, we will be working the darker to the lighter to kind of build upon it, making it look nice and fluffy. Oh. So I'm going to add a bit of the cast shadow of the leaves like I was mentioning earlier. So just taking the blue, keeping the leaf brush that I had, and just going across with it on the trunk of the tree and also the ground. And it's going to be a bit more sporadic, not going to be uniform, just to show the leaves casting the shadow across. And now we are going to add the grass texture. So I use the inking brush for this, and as we get farther away, it's going to be a bit smaller. And I do this step after I have everything established on the ground, just so I don't have to go way back and fix any of the grass texture. I can just do it all in one. And if I want any behind other objects, I just select it like I have here. And here's the selection, so I just have the texture behind it and I don't mess up what I had created. So the little strokes I'm doing are just color picking the area to be blended. And we're not going to keep going straight. We're going to curve them, go diagonal, make them a bit different from each other. But what I'm doing is just color picking, adding small strokes, and as we get closer, we're going to make the brush bigger and allow the grass to get taller to help show a sense of depth. And once we get everything behind the tree established, we're going to turn off the selection and put grass over the tree to make it seem planted in the ground instead of just being there. So this step usually takes me a bit of a while because I'm trying to get all the color changes so we keep the blending we took a bit of time with getting, and we have a bit of different color throughout the piece as well. So we're going to add a bit of flowers to here, just to add a bit more color that isn't just blue or green. And we're going to go for an orange because it's a nice opposite to the blue. And adding a bit of just dots in the background. We're not going to have too much indication, just to show it's going to be a nice feel there. And we're going to use the same brush as we've been using, the inking brush, just going in. And as we get closer, we're going to have it come up in brightness. And the flowers closest to us are going to have a bit of a darker color to show it being a full flower. But nothing too complicated. It's just quickly easy going in. And sometimes I use the top points of the grass acting as if they were the stems of the flowers to kind of help me indicate where I'm going to put the flower dots. So now we are going to be working on the rocks. So I'm going to look for a blue-gray to kind of match the feel we're having going on. I don't do a brown because I feel like there's too much brown here in the foreground to kind of break it up. But using the inking brush and just coming in, selecting, not selecting, outlining all of the rocks and then coloring them in. And then we're just going to go in and we're going to use the lasso tool to break out the rocks that overlap each other to help keep it nice and clean when we are shading. So as we start shading these rocks, you're going to do a bit darker color on the rocks that are in shadow to kind of separate them from the ones in light. And those are going to be the same color as the rocks in light shadow. So the darker part of the rocks in light is going to be the base color of the rocks in shadow. I hope that made sense. I was confusing myself for a minute. But these rocks aren't going to have a lot of strong light. A lot of the lighter color is going to be from the sky. So we're going to take a bit of the blue and blend it into the shadow color. And we'll do the same thing with the rocks in light as well, except the sky color is just going to be on one side, and they're going to have the strong light from the sky hitting them more to kind of differentiate them. And they're also going to have a bit of detail for the cracks, similar to how we did the trees. But if there's anything you guys want to see, any type of environments or anything in particular, just let me know. I'm always happy to take suggestions and figure out what to draw next. I do have some things upcoming. I do want to get that Blender part 2 done eventually. I just am looking for some more time between work and all the other stuff I gotta get done. But it's it's definitely cooking in the background, I promise. I didn't forget. But that is all for today. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Whenever this goes up, I think it's Friday. So weekend, and I'll